Hello again, and welcome to All About Danville. I'm Chuck Vipperman on behalf of Hampton Wilkins and Wilkins & Company Realtors, where we talk about all the wonderful things that are going on in Danville, talking to those who have lived here for a year, a few years, a few decades, more decades. We want to reach out to the natives. Also, we understand a lot of people who are thinking about coming to Danville are looking into the possibility. We want to use the All About Danville podcast to reach out to you guys to let you know what we have to offer here. Also, those of you who are thinking about not coming here to live, but coming to check out, this casino we got coming, or many other things, to let you know what the Danville area is all about. Our guest today is Pittsylvania County's Economic Development Director, Matt Rowe. He's a guy who can tell us all kinds of juicy stuff, but he can't. That's the nature of the economic development business. And economic development is one of those terms we hear all the time. We know what it is, but I don't think the average person knows the breadth of what it means. It's more than just the big industry, although that's part of it too. Let's just say that a lot of your job consists of having to do other things than ribbon cuttings, unfortunately.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of groundwork. Give us an idea what a typical day is for you, if such a thing exists, I guess.
Yeah, so I would say that a typical day is just organized chaos.
I like that.
So I start off with an idea of, we're going to do this today, and then get totally pulled in a different direction. But I think to move back even a step, taking a step back to what is economic development?
Right.
Academic answers can be really long-winded and use all the catchphrases, but really what it boils down to, Chuck, at the end of the day, we're just problem solvers. And we're problem solvers for business, right? So when a business is coming to us, they say, hey, we either have, excess demand. How do we meet that supply? And, of course, when that is the case, right, that's where we need a location. And so as part of trying to solve that problem, that's where we're really making the business case for them. Our community can provide this quality of a site that allows you to get up and running in this period of time. We're guaranteeing you this quality of a workforce. And, the location is important due to logistics.
Right.
And so, really at the end of the day, we're just nothing more than problem solvers. And I always tell folks it makes my project manager laughs all the time on this one, right? We're masters of none and good at everything.
That's pretty good, because you guys have to wear a whole lot of hats in terms of bringing in industry. Now, one thing I always like to point out, this was actually told to me years ago by a mayor here. He said if you can land 1 out of every 100 prospects that you get in touch with, you're doing a fantastic job. It's a low batting average here. It's a whole lot of work that's not going to bear fruit, but you got to do it anyway. If you're looking for instant gratification, economic development's probably not the field for you.
It's spot on. Now, I will say I would like to be measured based upon what that mayor's percentage was, because really what we're typically hitting right now is probably more in the 85% failure rate. Okay, rather than 99%.
99%. That's good.
And so I always, I'm not afraid of failure. I get turned down all the time. I'm used to rejection. So it really is. It is like speed dating. It is a numbers game, and you have to just have very thin skin, thick skin rather. Where we're done. Okay, great. Good luck. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, yes, we do a tremendous amount of groundwork, and oftentimes you don't see the outcome of it. And I will tell you, it's a 100-step journey to get a shovel in the ground.
That's it.
And so, even after the announcement, it's just so much that has to be done in order to actually get that shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
And most folks just have no clue. And if one of those steps is not in sync or in alignment, it can throw the whole thing off.
There's 100 different spots where it can break up.
Exactly.
That's got to be frustrating.
And I think our job is really somewhat, too, to find ways to limit those steps.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. The fewer steps
right? Fewer steps, fewer missteps. And so yes, that's one of the things I love about the job is that, a company's coming to you with a problem, in essence, and it's just how can you outsmart your competition to be able to solve it?
Right. Economic development, again, is more than about the big company, though. A lot of what you guys do is foster the economic climate for smaller companies, those that are not investing millions, are not hiring hundreds, but still they add up to millions of dollars of investment and hundreds of. But you guys don't differentiate. I mean, I've seen you put a lot of resources into the very small, even retail level businesses.
Exactly. I mean, so at the end of the day, the same dynamics that will attract a major megasite client are the same dynamics at play for a 15, 20 person operation. Again, the company's coming to your community or is expanding in your community or whatever the case may be. I mean, yes, because they like you, but it's driven by the fact that it makes business sense. They can make money. And so it's all about showing just that business plan of if you locate here by 3 years, this is what your bottom line is ultimately going to look like. And so, there's nothing wrong with getting singles. Yeah, I mean, you can still win the game a lot of runs by hitting singles. Yeah, Ichiro Suzuki's a great example where he didn't hit many home runs, but man, the guy had, he was a single making machine. Sure. And so, at the end of the day, you're actually going to get more singles than you are, sure, triples and home runs. And so, but more also, it's important in the fact that, economic waves, they do come in waves. I mean, so you have good times and you have bad times. Sure. And I think one of the things that this community hopefully has learned is, and we don't want to go back to being a one factory town. Sure. And so I think that it's been extremely wise, the strategy that the county and city leaders and regional leaders have put into place of we want to diversify our economy, and that's going to be done with these smaller operations. That's
by definition. And another thing, one of the good things about failure is you learn. You learn a 100%. Lot more, and you get very specific feedback. If Company A looks long and hard at Pittsylvania County and decides at the end, then you have a golden opportunity to find out where you fell short. And I know those exit interview type things are very crucial to you guys.
They are. So we're constantly getting feedback from companies. And typically that feedback for like a typical site consultant relationship, they will typically come probably 6 to 8 months after the company is announced somewhere else. Right. I will tell you, once a company visits our community, we have an extremely high success rate.
If you can get them here, I've heard.
It really, I would say it's probably above 50%. I mean, it really is a high success rate. So it's all about getting them to get on the plane, get in the car, whatever the case is, and get them here. And at the end of the day, folks, a lot of prospects you can kind of see that are coming in from overseas. They just may not know of us. Sure. And so you can kind of see like on their faces, well, why are we here? What are we doing? And then by the end of the visit, it's like, okay, I see the pathway forward. I see why this area is so attractive. I see the momentum that's going on, and so that's very, very extremely important. I mean, one of the things too that we often tell companies, and I firmly believe this. I really firmly believe this. This region right now is Greenville 1992 pre-BMW announcement. Yeah, it really is. Like it's already happening. But when you get that large transformational announcement, it's just going to put it on turbocharge.
And interesting, you mentioned Greenville when Danville was in the middle of losing tobacco and textiles simultaneously. Greenville was one of the models for us and what to do. And I think you're right. I think we've laid the groundwork culturally and socially. Now I don't want to say we sit back and wait because that's not what we're doing, but economic development has so many factors in it. You mentioned that it reminded me of the old car salesman's mantra. If you can get them in the car, you might be able to sell it to them. Nothing sells the car better than the car itself. Nothing sells Pittsylvania County better than somebody coming here and seeing and hearing and feeling what we're all about. This area is marketable, even if we don't have the track record of having that mass. We are very marketable. We have lots of advantages you simply are not going to find anywhere else.
100%. If you are making things, and I know COVID was devastating, for the world, and I'm sorry for those that lost family members. But from an economic standpoint, it is and will continue to benefit us. It is actually accelerating what was already occurring, which is the shortening of supply chains and just reinforcing those supply chains for redundancy purposes. And so everybody's following the Amazon model.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to be not in the big city, but on the outskirt of the big city to be able to get access.
Right.
And so that is where we are. We are that mid-major market. And so you are going to continue to see a tremendous demand from manufacturers wanting to locate here. So, that's just the logistics side of it. And I can tell you from doing this, logistics is 50% of a business's bottom line.
Location.
Yeah. And so, that's really important. And then so when you add in the other components of, yes, we have a lower cost of doing business than the national average, typically over 18%. Yes, we've got great sites, business-friendly environment. Every community does that. And again, you have to kind of really pinpoint what makes your community special, truly special compared to others. Because everybody's going to say, we got a great quality of life.
Sure.
We got golf courses.
We got friendly people.
We got all, friendly people. The thing that really separates us is the workforce.
Yeah.
And that's something that's very difficult, I think, for our local population to understand, is the workforce component, like the investments that have been made, the scalability. It's a crime if our local population is not taking advantage of the investments that have been made, because it is totally world class.
Yeah.
We have folks from other states coming, other countries coming, looking at it, trying to figure out what have they done, how have they done it, how have they set it up. The Department of Defense with the U.S. Navy is not coming here by accident.
Exactly.
They see it as well.
Sure.
It's a national importance for them, and so that is the absolute key driver for what is causing this transformation. And then the other portion of it is that you're seeing a really case study of a community that frankly lost manufacturing and the impacts it had on the community.
Right.
But now the reverse is occurring. Manufacturing's coming back. You drive through downtown Danville, and it is just everywhere you look. Just those improvements are being made, and so that is extremely attractive to clients.
I've often heard it likened, bad analogy alert here, almost like a tapestry. If you have all these things in place, the workforce development piece, the community development piece, the tax levels, support from chamber, et cetera, but if you take one strand out of that, it all falls apart. If there's any part of that process that's not working, then the process is not going to work. And sometimes that's a major problem. It has been in years gone by. But I notice economic developers now are taking a lot more interest in that training that's going on at DCC and whatever it's offering, knowing that that's part of the tapestry. And if it's going to happen, it's all got to happen.
Yeah, it's a really good point you bring up. I would say, in my humble opinion, of course, I moved to the area here now, I guess about 7.5 years ago. The Porsche Industries announcement where they moved their corporate headquarters from Greensboro up to Danville. Right. For me, that was a very important announcement, not just because of the great paying, high paying jobs and everything else, but it was for me as an outsider coming in and working with companies and whatnot. It was the first time where I felt like we as a community were able to check off every box. Right?
Good point.
We've always had tremendous sites. We've always had great workforce, low cost, all those things. But in order to get that corporate headquarter, you got to have the quality of life.
Right.
And that was so important because, and let's face it, success breeds success. So then, of course, as soon as that announcement was made the very next day, by the way, Porsche Industries just moved its U.S. Corporate headquarters from Greensboro here. They looked at Raleigh, they looked at California, they looked at New York, and they chose here because of the great quality of life we have, what's going on, the research opportunities, so on and so forth. And what you really see is that, we as economic developers, we're really just storytellers.
Sure.
And so a typical client that's coming into town, especially, one that is, the state's flying them in on a plane or whatever the case may be, they're on the ground maybe for 2.5 to 3 hours.
Right.
And so it's bang.
Like you say, speed dating. I love that analogy, yeah.
It's rolling. And so what we usually will do, and I've got to give a lot of credit to the elected leaders and the citizens and everything else, we have great sites. We are we have been site rich. The sites are disappearing, thankfully, but we got to get back into the business of making sites.
Yeah.
And so we'll typically spend 25% of the time on the site. And then, and again, we know the site's great. We don't have to spend it, all those questions are answered. And so then we spend the remaining 75% of the time on workforce.
That's great.
And most communities can't do that.
No, they have to give a lot to the workforce component. Yeah.
Yeah, most communities have to, on the first visit, most communities probably will spend 75% of the time on the site.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's the reverse.
One thing we have no shortage of in Pittsylvania County is land, of course, and that's been a big tool in the toolbox, I guess. Low tax rate, friendly people. We always like to say that. But yeah, the training component probably sets us apart. Also, quite frankly, the ability and the flexibility that the county has to work with the city and with the state economic development partnership. Partnership being the key word. This all doesn't happen in your office. There's a whole lot of people that have to get their fingers dirty in the process.
100%. We are punching way above our weight as a community.
Right.
And that's just due to the fact that the community has agreed to proactively work with one another. Now, I don't know if that is in good, frankly, good nature. I believe that that's the case. I know it is now.
Sure.
But frankly, this community hit rock bottom. And so when you hit rock bottom, you either say, hey, this is where we're going to stay.
Yes, sir.
Or we're going to lock arms and we're going to, fight to get out. So the real question is not, whether or not typically, you're going to lock arms and get out. But once you get back to the surface, are you going to continue to hold?
You got to have a plan then, yeah.
And so what I've seen is that folks understand, and it's extremely rare. Like, this is not just rare for like Virginia. This is really rare in economic development. But what I'm seeing is that this community, which I think is just due to how fast this transformation is occurring,
right,
is that we are one and the same. We are truly inseparable. And that this relationship is so special, you dare not touch it, and so again, it's extremely important that this relationship continue on, because let's face it, at the end of the day, the city is a built-out environment.
Sure.
And in the county, we have land, and it's we have infrastructure all around the city, and I think a very telling part of our relationship is. And how close we are with the City of Danville is the fact that they actually agreed to be part of this new Stanton River Regional Industrial Facility Authority, which is 50-plus miles away.
Yeah, which is way up there, yeah.
And so they understood the importance of that just partnership and just the regionalism.
Well, there's a spillover effect. I mean, that city limit sign does not prevent dollars from going in or out. I mean, it's almost imaginary, but, I mean, we have to abide by it. The biggest, most conspicuous partnership, of course, is at Berry Hill, and, of course, it's generated the most frustration. I mean, we can revisit that certainly. So close. I mean, I always hated losing close in sports. I'd rather my football team lose by 5 touchdowns than 1 point.
It's like Ricky Bobby.
It's the first or last.
First or last.
There is no second place prize in economic development.
And it's a contact sport.
Yes, it is. And just talk about that process. I mean, yeah, frustration. I guess that's one word, but wow, we've come so close.
Well, it gets back to, I think, how our first part of the conversation here is how is economic development measured in time frames? And again, you've got to give a lot of credit, a tremendous amount of credit to our elected officials and regional leaders. Most communities just don't have the stomach for it.
Right.
So I've been in various meetings across the state and across the country, frankly, and I hear economic directors and folks say, we're going to get this done in 4 years. We're going to get this done in 3 years. And I'm just sitting there shaking my head like, you guys have no clue.
Good luck with that.
How long this process is.
Really.
And so I think a great story to tell, like when it comes to the Megasite is, in 2017, and we were finalists for the Toyota Mazda project. And so they ended up going to just outside of Huntsville, Alabama, in Limestone County. And I believe the mayor at the time, I think his name was Tommy Battle, and he was being interviewed by the news crew right after the announcement. Tommy, how do you feel about the Huntsville Megasite?
Feel pretty good.
And he said, that's an interesting question you asked. He's like, if you had asked me that question yesterday, my answer would be a different answer than it is today.
It's all it takes is one.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's really, really important. And that was a 10-year plus process for them.
Yeah.
And so, we acquired the property in the early 2000s. And so from a Megasite life, evolution, we're now an adult.
Right.
And so I would say that Toyota Mazda search in 2017 is what put us on the map. we were nowhere ready, Chuck, for that project.
Understood.
But but I think it really actually caused the Commonwealth of Virginia to say, we actually have the ability to win one of these mega projects, because frankly, the Virginia just wasn't really in the game.
Right.
And so, we learned from that number one, we have to be much more regional than we already are. Mm-hmm. And so, because I just remember in that visit, we were, showing off and touting how many machinists and blah, blah, blah we have coming through from Danville and Pittsylvania County. Mm-hmm. And looking back, it was cute. And so immediately after that visit, we called, and this was a multi-month process with them. Right. Our infrastructure was so strong, it kept us in it. But we then called all of the community colleges and high schools and everyone within a 45-mile radius. Right. And all of a sudden here, the story got stronger. You're talking about the tapestry, right? Sure. We're just continuing to weave more into the tapestry. Right. And so, we learned from that experience. And so then we got into the final three for another automotive project in 2018. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, I think the state really realized these guys can do it.
We're a player, yeah.
Yeah, these guys can really do it. And so, in 2018, 2019, that's where we were working with Secretary Valentine to get the funding for the new roadways, and everything came flying through there. So I would say that, we really became, in my opinion, like playing in the major leagues probably towards 2019. So it took 9 years just to get to right. You started in single A, now we're in the majors. And I would say where we are now is that we are a annual playoff contender. Yeah,
and again, the home run's going to come certainly, but again, you get an idea of where you're falling short, and you can address that. That's the I won't say the beauty of it, because it's frustrating as heck, but you know what you need. And boy, right now it is. Even more so than 10 years ago, the competition is hot and heavy. There's some numbers being thrown around that blow my mind, and I can only imagine someone being immersed in it. And again, of course, I mean, the incentives are a little bit beyond what your office does, but you can facilitate that. And boy, the game is changing all the time.
It is. The projects are becoming larger and larger. Right. And so what's happening right now is we're literally going through an industrial revolution. Mm-hmm. This change from the internal combustion engine to the EV battery, regardless of your politics, it's happening.
It's happening. Yeah.
It's happening, and you don't realize or understand the ramifications of that. In the supply chain, right? Like you don't know. Like I mean, there's so many thousands of parts that go into an internal combustion engine, and all those parts are getting ready to become, frankly, obsolete. Yep. And so they're having to recreate this new supply chain for EV. Battery, and then on top of that, right now, frankly, and this is really a global thing for developed countries. We're going through a demographic crisis, and it doesn't matter, and again, it's not politics. I mean, we have to find more bodies, and it's not a dance. Like I always love to hear, the typical kind of comment of, there's no one to work, and so on. Yes, and that's not an accurate statement in the fact that. This is a demographic problem where you could be in Austin, Texas, right? You could be in Raleigh. I mean,
it could be anywhere. Exactly.
The same challenges are occurring across the board, and it's just due to demographics. So we actually have a higher rate of success and chance of success for a company because we've put these workforce programs to educate the kids. Because when a company's coming and they're going to be looking to open a factory, right, it's going to take them 3 to 5 years to build that thing, and so
they don't want to have to train if they can help it. Right? Training is a great expense,
and so again, like that is why it's so important. But the projects are getting bigger and bigger as far as investment wise because it's involving more and more automation to try to deal with this demographic crisis. The companies know. That this is an issue across the board. And so that's why you're seeing these projects get to $3 billion, $5 billion. I mean, they're just getting bigger and bigger. To me, huge projects.
I know inflation, but all that jazz, but wow.
Yeah, and everything's getting much more vertically integrated as far as on site. And so what I can say, is truly is that number one, since 2020, we have not lost a single project due to the site.
Yeah.
It drives me insane to hear the narratives that people come up with because we can't talk about specific projects, real or perceived. Right. But I'll go on record and tell you, we have never lost a project that is due to the site.
Yeah.
For example, with Hyundai, our site is much further along than the site they chose.
But location, it was closer to their stuff.
Is closer to their supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
You nailed it. And so, to hear kind of the takes that people have on the Megasite, none of them are right. And so you're just sitting there kind of like, it's just not the way it was.
Wish I could say something, but
yeah. And so again, so you can speak to projects that to a certain degree that have been announced. And so, like I said, that's not
okay.
Yeah, that's not the reason that Hyundai went to Georgia. They went down to Georgia because they already had relationships down there.
Sure.
But it is a long development process, and we are not losing projects in Virginia due to incentives. The incentive value, I would say that Virginia needs to probably do a better job in the net present value of incentives.
Yeah.
A dollar now is better than $1 in the future.
Exactly. And I know the General Assembly in their last two sessions have been very purposeful about this particular line item, that is to say the mega announcements, mega site development. And, of course, no site is more mega than Berry Hill. I know you can't say anything, but how close are we?
I mean,
we're getting inquiries all the time, I'm guessing.
I literally, in the past 7 days, I think we've done 3 RFIs. One Global Fortune 500. It just continues to pour in.
It's too good a place to keep a secret.
So it's really interesting. Again, me not being from the area, when I first got here, it was always this question of, is Berry Hill going to get anything? And all of a sudden now it's just changed to it's not if, it's when.
When, exactly.
And I think that's really important that our own citizens and populace are seeing that, because it really is. You could get a call tomorrow that says that we have it, and again, who says that we don't have it now? And we just haven't announced.
We just haven't announced it. See what I told you, folks? The one thing I like about your office, too, and I think this applies to Danville as well, obviously you work like heck to get the Berry Hill, but you guys put a lot of effort into the Amthor expansion, and that is the kind of company that the rubber meets the road. It's a family-owned company. They came here 30 years ago, I think, from New Jersey, and they have really expanded their presence in Pittsylvania County, and it was evident at the event that they did it because they like the people they've met here in Pittsylvania County. They've made themselves quite at home here, and it's been hopefully a reciprocal situation, because your office put a lot of work into not only landing that, but promoting that after it happened. That's a great success story.
It is. Amthor is a fantastic company. It is a Pittsylvania County story, if I ever heard one, right? The people of Southern Virginia are such hard workers. Yeah. They're not looking for a handout. They're looking for a hand up. And so at the end of the day, Butch and Alice and Brian, they're just shining examples of that. They moved here in the late 80s, early 90s. Tremendous. It was a tremendous risk to go from New York to a little place called Gretna.
Yeah.
And so he literally was sleeping in the office back in the 90s and just making it work. And it just gives me such pride to see, Brian, really kind of taking the reins of the company and working, with. It's a fourth and fifth generation company. Yeah. And I can tell you, Brian is going to continue to take that company to levels that we can't even imagine. We're going to be so thankful, and we already are. But we're going to continue to be thankful that Amthor is in Gretna, because they're just on a tremendous growth trajectory, and that market that they're in is just it's expanding and exploding, and Brian and them just can't build them fast enough.
Well, that's the thing. They originally advertised themselves as welding only, but now it's fabrication. It's everything. But they're doing it here, and that's the reason that they invest millions of dollars here, because they like it here.
They like it here. He was looking at a location in Florida for this expansion, and I might have caught wind of it and had a conversation with Brian.
I love it.
But Brian, Brian is such a good guy. He's I won't repeat what he said.
Not a problem.
But at the end of the day, it pretty much came down. I told him, I said, Brian, the reason why you're in a position of where you can even consider to expand to Florida is due to the people that are in Gretna.
Precisely.
And so I told him, I said, why would you not just go ahead and double down on that? I mean, if I'm a gambling man and I'm really good at blackjack, I mean, why would I go play roulette?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, keep. You got the hot hand.
Yeah,
you got you got the hot hand. Keep it going. And so he said, well, all right, Matt, I hear you. If you can find me a building solution, then we can make this work. He's like, we got to move. And, due to the success we've had, we don't have a lot of really strong, available advanced manufacturing buildings. And so we had just recently announced that project with James Garner and Tradesman
That's
Trucking.
Right. Yeah.
And so I reached out to James and I said, I know you just got your building permit. How much of a bind would it put for you to be 6 to 8 months behind in your project and sell that building that's yet to be built to Amthor, since you've already gone through the building permit process and gotten right. Because they'll shave off time.
Sure.
And so that's the marriage. I mean, I immediately got a Zoom meeting between those two guys together, and they hit it off very well. And next thing, I think it was like a month later, Brian said, we're ready to move forward.
That's what partnership looks like. That's what economic development looks like. You're listening or watching All About Danville. Our guest today is Pittsylvania County Economic Development Director Matt Rowe. It's brought to you by Wilkins and Company Realtors. Matt, one final thing. I don't know if you've heard about this casino that's coming.
Just a little bit.
Okay. When you're selling an area, you're selling quality of life. And again, whatever the casino is going to do, one thing we do know it's going to do, it's going to bring more people to here. It's going to bring a different dynamic here. One of the things I like to say is think about the crowds we have during Martinsville race weekend. It's going to be that more or less every day now. It's a challenge, and certainly a challenge for leaders here in Danville and Pittsylvania County. But as someone who is in the economic development business, again, we like to talk about another tool in your toolbox, quality of life. We have a casino here. Your workers will have access to lots of things that they would not have had access to 10, 12 years ago here. It's a challenge, I'm guessing, not only casino, but white mill development and other things that are ancillary things. But from your standpoint, it's something else to sell the area, and that's good.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to your tapestry analogy. Again, it's another thread. Mm-hmm. And so, when I think it's extremely attractive more for like the Megasite level, just because of the fact that, when they're building the factory or they're coming in after the factory's built, they typically are coming in teams.
Right, yeah.
And so it, again, gives you more abilities for accommodations. Mm-hmm. We have a tremendous demand for hotel rooms.
Oh, yes.
And so this will really, I think, answer that. And so, for example, when we're doing a helicopter tour of the Megasite or whatnot, and we're going past there, and I'm usually the one giving those tours, even though I don't enjoy being.
He's not a helicopter guy.
I'm not a helicopter guy. Don't ask Corey and Linda about my helicopter.
Take stories. One for the team, though.
Yeah, you do what you got to do. But so when we're going, just to the south of that site. Of course, we'll always mention it,
sure.
and because it's a massive site.
You can't miss it from the air, yeah.
And so, again, when we were doing this back in 2018, 2019, it was the old finishing plant that
right.
and it was frankly an eyesore.
Sure.
And so now, of course, it's just another marketing spot of this is continual, development and investment back into the city. I mean, it speaks volumes whether you're for a casino or against a casino on the principle of gambling or whatever the case may be. The fact is, Caesars is investing $650 million in your community. It's going to have ripple effects.
Yeah, if this company is investing that, then
exactly.
maybe your investment is going to be paid
right.
off. Finally, Matt, just to kind of wrap this up again, economic development is an ever-changing, nebulous industry such as it is. The way you do business today is different than it was just a few years ago.
Certainly.
It's going to be different 5 years from now. But it sounds like the foundation that you and others have laid in the county, the fact that you're selling the county, you're selling a lifestyle, you're selling advantages that cannot be found anywhere else. Build it and they will come. Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that.
It is, and again, it gets back to the story, and so I mean, we're selling the story. Right. We're selling the idea of what Southern Virginia is, and more importantly, will be.
Right.
And so it's extreme. Our past is extremely important. But the fatality of mill towns oftentimes is that they can't get past their past
Sure.
to move into the present and the future.
Sure.
And so again, it comes back to your statement of right. You've got, and I'll take a step back. You had I guess it was probably back in 2018, 2017 time frame where you had a lot of national attention here in the city. With folks that were coming and American manufacturing's dead, and we're going to we're going to do this spectacle in front of the white mill, and we're going to take pictures and put it of all these empty places.
Right.
The interesting thing is that I would love to have those folks come back.
Come on, to see what that picture looks like now.
Right,
yeah.
Because everything that were that was highlighted in that negative light. You cannot be an unbiased observer and not see what is happening in Southern Virginia, right? So that white mill building, $85 million project. The Schoolfield site, $650 million project.
Which, quite frankly, I thought that was going to be there when I was dead and gone because, again, it's so big, it's so isolated. No one goes out West Main anymore. What in the world is that? A casino?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And again, and you really need to thank your politicians, your local politicians, for Delegate Marshall and Senator Ruff and others. I mean, they understand that if sometimes you have to change the rules to the game. If the rules of the game are not benefiting you, and you have the ability to change the legislation,
if you're getting your butt kicked like we were for a while,
change them. Yeah. And so by them having that foresight to be able to put forward legislation. And it's not just for the casino, but I mean they've done that, for example, for the Megasite with for House Bill 1840, where Danny put that bill in there to that enables power companies to build on spec infrastructure to industrial sites. I mean, we were getting whooped by Alabama, who allowed them to do that. So it's just really, again, that entire ecosystem. Everybody's in the boat. I love this analogy, right? I mean, and that's one of the things I love about this region is that everybody's in the boat. We're all rowing in the same direction. And if you have one person when you're rowing that's out of lockstep, you go around in a circle.
Sure.
And so everybody here is knows the story, they have the mission, and is going in the same direction. I mean, I'm very bullish on the future.
Folks, we're going to have a big announcement from Berry Hill very soon. The good news is we're going to have other big announcements from Pittsylvania County that will be just as important, and it's because of the effort of a lot of people, but people like Matt Rowe, the Economic Development Director of Pittsylvania County. It's an interesting little intersection of history we're at here, economically and socially here. Things have changed drastically over the last 5 years. 5 years from now, it might look even different, but you know what? It's going to be better. And it's going to be better because we have an economic and, quite frankly, a cultural foundation that, unlike in the past, is going to embrace this change and master this change. You bring the businesses, we'll fill them up. How about that?
It's a deal I can make.
Matt Rowe is our guest today on All About Danville. On behalf of Wilkins & Company Realtors, Hampton Wilkins and others, I'm Chuck Vipperman. Have a great day, everyone.